Welcome to the Explainer. Today we are going to crack the code behind every single legally binding agreement you will ever sign, from a huge business deal all the way down to your insurance policy.
You ever wondered about that? Like, is a simple handshake deal with a friend actually enforceable in court? And what is it about a formal document that gives it so much power? What's the real difference?
Well, it turns out the core of any valid contract, and I'm talking about a job offer, an apartment lease, an insurance policy, you name it, it all boils down to 4 essential elements. If you get these right, you've got a binding agreement. But if you get even one of them wrong, the whole thing could be completely worthless.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll reveal the secret code that makes contracts tick. Then, we're going to break down each part: competent parties, legal purpose, offer and acceptance, and consideration. And finally, we'll tie it all together and show you why knowing this stuff really matters in your day-to-day life.
Okay, so let's get right to it. The secret code, the mnemonic you need to remember for any contract is CLOC, or CLOC. Just think of it like the key that unlocks the whole logic behind any agreement that's meant to hold up.
Think of it like building a house. These 4 things: competent parties, legal purpose, offer and acceptance, and consideration. They're your foundation, your walls, your roof. If you try to pull one of them out, the whole structure just isn't sound anymore. So let's dig into each one, starting with that first C.
All right, that first C in our CLOC acronym stands for competent parties. And this whole element is about answering one really simple question: who is actually allowed, legally speaking, to get into a binding agreement? What this really means is that both sides of the deal have to be legally recognized as being able to make this kind of promise. In the insurance world, for instance, this means the insurance company absolutely has to be licensed by the state. If they're not a competent party.
So, who doesn't make the cut? Well, as you can see here, the law is designed to protect certain groups of people by saying they don't have the full legal capacity to be locked into a contract. We're talking about minors, people who are mentally incompetent, or, anyone signing while they're heavily intoxicated or being forced to.
Now here's a really interesting pro tip, especially when it comes to insurance. The legal parties in the contract are the person who owns the policy and the insurer. The beneficiary, the person who gets the money in the end, they aren't actually part of the contract itself. It's the policy owner who holds all the legal rights and responsibilities. Okay, on to the L in CLOC, legal purpose. This one sounds pretty obvious, and it is, but it's an absolute deal breaker, no exceptions.
The bottom line is this: a court is never going to enforce an agreement to do something illegal. It's just not going to happen. The entire reason the contract exists has to be above board and lawful right from the get-go.
I mean, to use a kind of a dramatic example here, you can't have a legally binding contract to commit a crime. So if you hired a hitman and they took your money but didn't do the job, you couldn't exactly sue them for breach of contract, right? Because the whole purpose was illegal. A valid contract never even existed in the first place.
Now for the third element, the O for offer and acceptance. This is where the two sides actually come together and form the agreement. It's that meeting of the minds. But, and this is a big but, especially in insurance, it probably doesn't work the way you think it does.
So, most of us would assume that when you get a quote from an insurance company, that's them making you an offer, right? Well, in the eyes of the law, it's actually the complete opposite. Here's how it really works. You, the applicant, are the one making the offer, and you do that when you fill out the application and hand over that first premium payment. The insurance company then takes your offer, reviews it, and if they approve you, they accept your offer by issuing the policy.
But wait, what if the insurer comes back and says, okay, we'll cover you, but it's going to be at a higher premium? Well, that is not an acceptance. That's a counteroffer. And what a counteroffer does is it completely kills your original offer. Now, the ball's back in your court. It's up to you to either accept or reject their new deal.
And that brings us to the last piece of the code, our second C, which stands for consideration. This is the glue that holds the contract together. It's the what's in it for me part for both sides.
You see, for a contract to be legally binding, it can't just be a one-way street. A promise to give someone a gift, for example, isn't a contract. Both parties have to give something of value to the other. There has to be an exchange.
So what does that exchange look like? Well, on your end, your consideration is 2 things: the money you pay for the premium and the truthful statements you make on your application. And on the insurer's end, their consideration is their promise to pay out if you have a legitimate claim.
It's your premium and your honesty for their promise of protection.
So we've broken down the whole CLOC code: competent parties, legal purpose, offer and acceptance, and consideration. But why bother memorizing this little acronym? Why is it so important for you to know this?
Because this isn't just some technical insurance jargon. This is the fundamental DNA of pretty much every contract you're ever going to see. Understanding this framework gives you power, whether you're signing a new phone plan, accepting a job offer, or renting an apartment. These 4 elements are the universal test for whether an agreement will actually stick.
So this is your big takeaway. This is your mental checklist. Before you sign anything, just quickly run it through CLOC. Are both sides legally able to agree? Is what we're agreeing to actually legal? Is there a clear offer and a clear acceptance? And are we both giving something of value? This simple check is your first line of defense.
Knowing this simple 4-letter code, CLOC, it changes the game. It transforms you from someone who just passively signs on the dotted line into an informed participant. It gives you the power to look at any agreement and, in an instant, judge its fundamental strength. So what are you going to see differently next time?